All right, the last thing we're going to talk about in this course is how to measure the performance of your website. So head over to web.dev/measure. Now on this page, we can enter the address of our website. So I'm going to go with moshified.netlify.app. Let's run an audit and see how we have done so far. Now this is going to take a few seconds, so I'm going to pause the recording. All right, here's how we have done so far. For performance, we got a score of 83. For accessibility, we got 79. For best practices, we got 93. And for SEO, we got 92. Now, don't let these numbers make you feel bad. 83 is not bad at all. It's actually pretty damn good. For the record, let me show you the audit of a few popular websites you know. So here's Apple. For performance, they got 40. For SEO, they got 83. Let's look at Twitter. For performance, they got 66. And here's Facebook. So what we have done so far is not bad at all. It's pretty damn good. But let's see how we can make this even better. So down below, you can see more details. These are the tasks that you can do to improve your score. So in this column, you can see the priority. You can see the category like performance, accessibility, and so on, a description, and a guide that tells you what exactly you need to do. Now, to see what parts of our page have triggered these issues, we go to the top and click on View Report. So here we can see a detailed breakdown of these categories. So let's go to accessibility. That's easy. The first issue is background and foreground colors don't have a sufficient contrast ratio. So if you expand this, we can see the failing elements. So we have this button, Get Started, with the accent color. So back to our page, here's the button that triggered the issue. Let's right click this and go to Inspect. All right, look at the style. So we have set the background to orange and foreground to white. Now, if we click on the foreground, over here, we see the contrast ratio. So currently the ratio is 3.66, which is failing the accessibility requirements, meaning some people cannot easily read this text. So if we expand this panel, we can see two suggestions. We have AA and AAA for improving accessibility. So if you click on this suggested color, now the foreground becomes black and this button becomes more accessible. So here's what we're going to get. But I don't quite like this color, so I'm not going to implement this change. Now back to our report. So we talked about the contrast between background and foreground colors. What is next? We have names and labels. So we have a form element that doesn't have a label. That is the input box for searching for a domain. Now, why do we need a label here? Because people who use assistive technologies like screen readers rely on these labels. In this markup, we don't have a label for the screen reader to read. So we're going to use a special attribute to give this input a label so screen readers can read it out. Back to index.html. Here's our input. We're going to give this an extra attribute called aria-label. Aria is short for Accessible Rich Internet Application. So we have a bunch of attributes that start with aria. The most popular one is aria label. Now we're going to give this a label like domain. So a screen reader is going to read out this label, okay? Now, back to our audit, we have another issue, another accessibility issue saying links don't have a discernible name. Discernible means visible. So here we have a link with the class of nav brand. And inside this link, we are using our logo. So this link doesn't have a text. It only has an image. Now this image doesn't have alternative text either. So there is no label associated with this link. Once again, to fix this, we're going to use the aria label attribute. So back to our markup. Here in the navigation bar, we have an anchor. We're going to give this aria label and set it to Moshify. What else? So we're done with accessibility issues. Now let's look at performance. So for performance, it's almost impossible to get 100% unless you want to sacrifice the maintainability of your code. So let's look at these suggestions here. Properly sized images. So this tool is saying that these images that we have can be further optimized and give us these potential savings. Now, we spent a lot of time to come up with a strategy for optimizing these images. So why are we getting this error? Well, here's essentially what's happening. Look at the file that was served, banner at 2x. Let's look at the size of this image in Photoshop. So The width of this image is 1140 pixels. Now, what do you think will happen if we see this image on a mobile device with the resolution of 375 pixels and pixel ratio of 2? To show a really sharp image, we need an image that is 750 pixels wide. But here we're serving an image that is 1140 pixels wide. So those extra bytes are wasted when this image is transferred to a mobile device. Now, to solve this problem, we can go to responsivebreakpoints.com. I talked about this tool in the second part of this series. So here we can generate multiple versions of this image for various devices. We can generate 5, 10, or more versions. But doing so is going to add some more complexity to our markup. So back to our audit, here we need to think like an engineer. We don't want to blindly optimize just to make this tool happy, just to get a score of 100. That doesn't make sense. So in this particular case, I'm not going to do any further optimization on these images. What else do we have here? The next issue is eliminate render block and resources. So we have a font coming from Google. There's nothing we can do about it. We also have normalize and styles.css. What we can do to improve performance is combine these style sheets into a single style sheet. So back to index.html, currently we have two separate link elements for bringing these style sheets. Now what we can do is get rid of normalize, and then we're going to go to styles.css. On the top, we're going to use the import directive to import normalize style sheet into this style sheet. So in quotes, we type // to represent the current folder, and then we type normalize CSS. And then we terminate this using a semicolon. When we build our project for production using Parcel, Parcel is going to combine these two style sheets into a single style sheet. So that was a simple fix to apply. Back to our audit. What else do we have here? Efficiently code images. So we have this testimonial image. This is just a basic image tag. We haven't implemented a picture element with different sources. So over here, you can see we have an error saying serve images in next-gen format. So it's suggesting that we should provide this image as JPEG 2000, JPEG XR, or WebP. This is pretty easy to fix, but I'm not going to do that because the steps are going to be repetitive. So now I'm going to deploy the latest changes and run another audit. Just keep a note of these numbers. All right, the audit is complete. Here's what we initially had, and here's the new result. I think we're done here. There's really no need to spend more time on this. I just want to show you one last thing before I finish this course. This tool that we're using for auditing our website is also available as a Chrome extension. So search for Chrome Store Lighthouse. There you go. Just add this to your Chrome. Now, when you open your website, let's say here, if you go to DevTools, on the top, we have another tab called Lighthouse. So we can run the same report for these categories for mobile or desktop. Just remember, when you're viewing your website locally, your assets like JavaScript and CSS files are not optimized, meaning they're not minified, they're not combined into a single file. So this report is going to complain about those issues. Just ignore them.